Hey y'all, today we're going to talk about how one of the really important paths to healing or skill building for someone who identifies with the self-objectifier body image avatar is to learn how to tune into your own pleasure. So just to recap the 4 body image avatars for you, and if you haven't seen all of this and want to learn more, I have other videos on the topic. The basic premise is that each person is trying to get their emotional needs met using their body, and I've broken people down into 4 kind of major patterns. When the unmet emotional need a person is trying to get using their body is respect or status, I call that person the high achiever. When somebody is trying to get the emotional needs met of acceptance, connection, or belonging, I call that person that body image avatar of the outsider. When someone is trying to get their unmet need for a feeling of safety or security, I call that body image avatar the runner. And then the self-objectifier is the one we're going to be talking about today, and their unmet emotional need is something in the space of sex, love, intimacy, and partnership. So something that tends to be true for a lot of people who resonate with the self-objectifier avatar is that they are constantly in their heads and thinking about what other people think about them, what other people are feeling towards them, what other people want from them, other people's pleasure, other people's arousal, other people's everything. They spend a lot of time in their own heads thinking about other people's experiences, specifically with regard to sex, partnership, and dating. So one of the things that is really important for the self-objectifier, if they want to get out of their heads and stop thinking about how they look to another person, which is about the other person's experience, is to get into their own body. The self-objectifier is often constantly really viewing themselves from a third-party perspective. And so this is where a lot of their body image issues and criticisms come in, is they imagine how they look to somebody else, they imagine the other person having a negative experience towards them, and they're doing all of this spectatoring and performing and posing, and a lot of that stuff really creeps in, and it makes them completely unaware of what's going on in their own body, what they think, what they feel, what they want, what they're actually feeling in terms of sensations. So one of the ways that we can alter this is to encourage that person to step back into their body using pleasure. Now, it should be noted that tuning into all of your body signals, all of your body sensations, every bit of information that your body is giving you is going to be helpful. If you identify with the self-objectifier avatar, there's probably a lot of ways that you can reconnect and tune back into your body that's going to help get you out of your head and help really dial down the volume on your body image issues. That said, pleasure is one of the most powerful for a lot of people, especially because the unmet emotional need that they're craving, the thing they're hoping that if only I look hot enough, I'm going to get blank. The blank for a lot of people in this category is toe-curling sex or really deep, rich intimacy or some other measure of partnership and intimacy and sex that just is exactly what they're really craving, and it has to do with pleasure. Now, why is pleasure so powerful? First and foremost, it has to be said that if you happen to be a woman who sleeps with and partners with men in a patriarchy, that everything has been designed, all of the conditioning we learn about gender roles and sex and partnership will have you believing that his pleasure, his desire, his arousal, his orgasm, that these are all central and prioritized and most important to the whole experience. That our job as, sexual objects to be admired or to be beautiful or to titillate is all about turning him on and making him feel a certain way and giving him sexual satisfaction. That it's not about us, that we don't get to take up equal space. Now, of course, if you are of any gender, there are a lot of ways that the patriarchy can screw you over in these spaces. It is not only this one way, but for people who resonate with the self-objectifier body image avatar, this is often the way it is. We learn it's about his pleasure. We learn that sex is for him to experience desire and then experience pleasure and then experience orgasm and satisfaction. And then our job is just to look hot. That's what we learn. And so reconnecting to your pleasure, to your arousal, to your orgasm and satisfaction totally shifts that entire experience. It makes you start to step into your agency and your power and your 3-dimensionality as a whole human person and an equal in that space. And also, it's one of the more compelling ways to get out of your head because you have a lot of very good reasons to be anxious and living in your head and thinking about what your partner likes and wants and feels and all of that. You have good reason. So it's kind of the only compelling way to get out of your head is to be wrapped up in pleasure, to really feel such pleasure that all of a sudden you can't be in your head anymore. And so for that reason, I would say pleasure is just an incredibly powerful tool for dealing with this body image issue in that space. Also, learning how to tune into pleasure and the sensations in your body around desire and arousal and pleasure and orgasm is going to make you feel so much more empowered and offer you a real map towards figuring out how to get what you want in those spaces of partnership and intimacy and amazing sex. Because if your whole plan, as many self-objectifiers have, your whole plan for body image is, I'm just going to look good enough that then I'll finally get everything I want in those spaces, a lot of times people just don't know how to get what they actually want in those spaces. So building the skill of learning how to tune into your own sensations of pleasure also allows you to tune into the skills of how to get what you want in bed, or the skills of how to cultivate intimacy with a partner, or the skills of communication, like all of that stuff that you want that's going to actually lead to the juicy, intimate, sexy life that you're looking for. It doesn't come on the other side of being hot or losing weight or fixing your perceived flaws or anything. It only comes on the other side of knowing yourself, knowing what you like, and knowing what feels good so that you feel like you have agency and information to go get what you actually want. Now that we've talked a bit about why this skill of tuning into pleasure is so important for somebody who's trying to move towards body acceptance and body neutrality, now I want to talk about what it actually is, because it's easier said than done. It is absolutely a difficult skill. It takes a lot of practice and patience and courage, but it's actually fairly simple. It's kind of like mindfulness, where you just train your brain to connect its neural pathways to the sensations in your body, and those sensations happen to be ones of pleasure. Particularly sexual pleasure when we're talking about the sexual space, but just pleasure at all. The practice of learning to tune into pleasure is about training your brain to notice and tolerate the feelings and sensations of what is good in your body. And if you're looking for a place to begin, I highly recommend starting to practice this skill outside of the sexual space first, just so you can start to get your brain kind of headed in the direction and really understand what it means to notice, tolerate, and really tune into sensations that are positive and good and pleasureful without getting all mixed up with sexuality at first. It'll make it a lot easier. So first, I recommend just starting with sitting in the sun and noticing how good the sun feels on your skin, or the breeze feels in your hair. Or listen to your favorite song and notice, really sit there super mindfully tuning your attention in to the fact that it feels good to listen to this song. Ask yourself where in your body you can feel the pleasure of listening to your favorite song. Notice that. Just send your attention there and practice keeping it there. You can do this with anything. You can do this with eating your favorite meal, or eating a piece of chocolate, or smelling your favorite perfume, or looking at a beautiful sunset or a beautiful painting. Any of these things that give you pleasure or joy, just practice noticing, sitting with that sensation, asking your brain to connect with and focus on and tune into the feelings of pleasure that you get from that experience. After you get good and practiced with the skill of tuning into joy and pleasure and good feelings in your body in a non-sexual space, I recommend moving towards a sensation and tactile place. Fingertips, especially light fingertips, dragged along your palm or the backs of your hands or forearms. Notice that. Spend time tuning your brain into that sensation, just like a mindfulness practice. You're just sitting with that sensation. Feel it, let it move you, let it really expand inside you. Spend time feeling goodness and pleasure through touch. You can touch your whole body, you can touch your face, you can have someone else touch you. There's so many ways to sit with and practice building up that neural pathway between your brain and tactile sensations of pleasure. Then when you've gotten good at that, you can move into a sexual space. I recommend doing this alone in a solo sex practice first, just to keep as many factors out of it as possible as you're getting used to this new skill. But if you've been doing it for a while or you feel ready, you can totally include a partner in this as well. Just spend time noticing what feels good. Make it a practice. Make it a container. Say for 5 minutes, I just want to be touched and I want to spend time connecting my brain to the sensation of what's being touched. Notice what feels good. Do more of that. Notice if it stops feeling good. Check in with why that might be. So much information here is available to you if you spend the time tuning your brain into the sensations of pleasure in your body. And as you go into a sexual space, knowing how to do this already, it's going to be a lot easier for you to be like, okay, I like this then. I don't like that so much. Here's what I want. Here's what maybe you start learning to connect with and communicate with your partner. Do this, not that. So now we're getting into a space where you actually know yourself sexually a lot better, and the experience of sex or intimacy for you is a lot more satisfying because you're actually present in your body to experience it. Instead of, and this is the tricky thing, it takes a lot of time and practice, instead of living in your head performing sexuality and intimacy for your partner. Now, like I said, this is way easier said than done. It is a difficult skill to cultivate, but with practice, you absolutely can get out of your head, stop thinking about how you look to your partner, and start thinking about how you feel. And in fact, in my experience with people who are in this category, it is the only thing compelling enough to get them out of their heads, to get them to stop thinking about how they look, is super intense, juicy, embodied pleasure. If you want support figuring out how to do this in your own body, of course, you can always apply for coaching with me. This is something I do with my clients a lot. Otherwise, thank you for watching and share your thoughts in the comments.